So it's school holidays here, and my daughter was given homework to do over school holidays for an art project. She had to go to the Natural History Museum and take some pictures of some natural forms, and then do some drawings. So we went to start of the holiday. We went to the Natural History Museum. And did you ever go when you were in London? It's in South Kensington. It's like a little sort of complex of museums built by the Victorians, and we kind of got the train and we went to the Natural History Museum, and you go through a little tunnel and then you come out into the open air and through this very, very grand entrance. And we were wandering around the museum, which I've been to 24 times before, and it is a great museum, great exhibits. But for the first time, this time round, I was looking at the building, and I'll tell you, there is no surface in the Natural History Museum which is not somehow illuminated or adorned or decorated. Every brick, is carved and beautifully finished. There's statues everywhere. The stairways, it's a product of such incredibly fine craftsmanship. Everywhere you look, even in the darkest little recesses, the corner between the ceiling and the wall, which is 14 feet over your head, which no one ever looks at. They're all immaculate and so well sort of decorated. Every brick is perfect. And I realized that the reason that this building is so elaborate and so very, very luxurious is because it was really the Victorians' way of showing off to the world. Look at our incredible wealth. We're able to build an enormous public project like this, which is made to such an astoundingly high standard. We can afford it. And the reason that the Victorians could afford it was because they had spent the previous 60 years basically siphoning off the wealth of all of the rest of the world and drawing it back into London. And the Natural History Museum now, to a modern eye, it looks like a kind of reminder of Britain's shameful colonial past. Harry Hill is a British comedian. He used to be on the comedy circuit here many years ago. I remember one of my favourite gags of his. He said, "I went to a local restaurant called A Taste of the Raj. The waiter beat me with a stick and forced me to build a complicated railway system." I remember this. It's a great gag, but you know what? That's exactly what the British Empire did around the world.
Yeah.
Having watched RRR this week and Gunga Din, I'd be interested to know how many movies there are that really get colonialism right. Before, when we were talking about Gunga Din, you mentioned that it was like a Cowboys and Indians movie.
Yeah.
And the way that we view Cowboys and Indians movies now are very, very different to the way that we view them when they were originally made. I'm hoping that we're now in the kind of climate where we can properly reassess the cost and the legacy of colonialism. But has it really filtered through to cinema? What do you think? What have you seen?
I don't think I've seen anything recently other than RRR. In my film viewing career, I've seen a couple of things that definitely make me think about colonization. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, the first two films that came up were French colonialist things.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen Chocolat by Claire Denis.
So that's Juliette Binoche, isn't it?
Is it?
Is that Chocolat?
I'm not sure. Oh no, that's also Chocolat. You're right.
Oh.
No, this is a different Chocolat. That is is it Lassie Hallström who did that film? I think so. Yeah, with Johnny Depp, right?
Yeah.
No, this is.
I don't remember any colonialism in that film.
No, not
you
really.
have a very different reading of that film.
Well, maybe there is actually, but I'm going to go back and think about that a bit more. But Chocolat, it's a Claire Denis film. It's a French film, probably from the 80s.
Okay.
And really, I think gives a very accurate, I hope a very accurate representation, not of how the men colonized, but it's really about a woman who's sort of abandoned by her husband is an officer in Africa, and he kind of disappears for long periods of time. So she's left to raise a daughter among the servants, and just it's nice because it attacks it on this sort of domestic level. This is how you treat the people here. This is how you treat the locals. Um, and it's very conflicted because she sort of has feelings for one of the servants, and her daughter is very friendly with the same servant. So that one strikes me as being a different angle on it. It's not, there certainly are men with guns in it, but there aren't a lot. That's not the main story. So I liked that because it was a much more personal view of it. There's this one scene in Apocalypse Now, but I think it's the Redux version. So they edited this scene out, and I love it. It's just this surreal moment where like Martin Sheen and the others, they chance upon this, I think it's a coffee plantation in the jungle, something like that. And it's these French that are just eating off of this beautiful china, and they're in a pretty nice building. And it's just this meal basically that they stumble into. But it really is this wonderful contrast between how the colonizers are living in the middle of this war zone jungle and how the locals are. So, I mean, I think those are two films that strike me for their colonization and how day to day it is. It's not all about just bursting into a country and violently taking it over or forcing people into building things. It's also about just how you bring your own culture into another place and how you have a very higher standard of living day to day among the people who live there normally.
That's interesting. That reminds me of The River. Have you seen that? Which is Jean Renoir.
No.
I think it might be his last picture, possibly. Which is like, it's a beautiful picture about this girl growing up in colonized India. And I honestly can't remember whether it's a French family or an English one. I think it must be English. And the only thing I really clearly remember about it starts out with like a sequence of scenes where the little girl is playing in the garden with a boy, and there's a snake, and they're too young really to know to be afraid of the snake, and it's very, very tense because we, the audience, know that the snake, what the snake means, and the children kind of don't. And the scene that I really remember from that film is about like the real kind of banality of everyday life. These Europeans in India, towards the end of the movie, there's a scene where everybody has a nap, and the camera just lingers on each of the characters as they have an afternoon nap when it's just too hot and too hazy to do anything during that part of the day, and it's just it's a beautiful, leisurely, sleepy little bit of filmmaking. A wonderful bit of control. I really clearly remember that nap. That's the greatest nap in cinema history. But what it says about what it says about colonialism is largely banal, I think. And it's a film that's largely seen through the eyes of children, and so they don't see the wider picture that the adults will. So I don't think it really deals with those issues. The Battle of Algiers, actually, that was French colonialism, wasn't it? Wasn't it the French who colonized Algeria?
Yep.
And then, have you seen the Battle of Algiers?
1962?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I have. Yep.
So I could remember going to see that and being not entirely clear whether it was a documentary or a drama.
Exactly,
and it straddles those two camps.
It's good that way, yes.
And that has, this tremendously tense scene where there's a bomb that goes off in a cafe. Which I think that's another thing that Hitchcock either referred to, or the scene in this film refers to Hitchcock, because I remember Hitchcock, explaining, so elegantly that the difference between thrills and suspense is that in thrills, a bomb goes off in a cafe, whereas suspense is that there is a bomb under the table in a cafe, and you're just watching people drinking their coffee, and we, the audience, know there is a bomb, but nobody else does. That's kind of suspense. And Battle of Algiers absolutely plays that out, exactly note for note, and does it tremendously well.
I hesitate to bring this film up because it's kind of gushy, corny Hollywood, but I didn't love Dances with Wolves, but I did like the way it showed the American Indian a bit more on screen. And I like the fact that Kevin Costner ultimately sort of joins them and learns how they live and respects them. And I think that's it's definitely colonialism with a little bit of resistance that I liked to see on screen, because that's like 1992, and we hadn't seen stuff like that. We hadn't seen it on screen, I don't think, at that point. I'm not going to like say it's a great film or that I absolutely loved it, but it was. And again, it's for the masses. It's a mass release film, So I think that's where we need to put some of these ideas out there. So it was, there's definitely a little anti-colonialism in it. It's not that strong, but a lot of people are seeing that, and their eyes are getting open to different culture and a culture that we here in the United States tried to just wipe out.
I think Dances of Wolves might be a really good illustration of one of the big problems with cinema trying to tackle issues of colonialism, which is the white savior trope, isn't it?
Precisely.
One of the movies kind of about colonialism I was going to mention was Lawrence of Arabia, but that's absolutely the ultimate example of that, isn't it?
Yes.
That, these Arabs can't sort themselves out, but a white fellow, he'll sort it out for them.
He can figure it out.
The white people do it. Any Hollywood film which tries to talk about colonialism, will have sadly seems to struggle without having a white guy, a Hollywood guy, in the lead, which means you kind of fall into this trap again and again. So it should be something that's easy to overcome, especially now that cinema becomes annually more global, and broader, becomes a broader church year by year.
Yeah.
And yet still, we don't seem to quite be able to get get white people off the screen. Even something like sort of Gandhi, a great anti-colonialist film.
Yeah.
But Gandhi is still portrayed by a white guy in makeup.
Yes.
So you still can't hit those notes.
Yeah, very good actor, but someone else could have done it, I think, right?
Someone else could have done it.
I mean, we just saw that in Gunga Din too. It's
absolutely
full body paint on some actors to pull that one off. When you sort of pitched this as a topic, I also thought about like colonization via film, because the United States, it's one of our biggest exports is entertainment, is Hollywood, is films. And I think that starts to get into it's changing the worldwide culture. And of course, now other countries are sort of trying to do the same sorts of things that we do in Hollywood in other places. And I think, two of our biggest exports are weapons and film. So when I saw RRR, I was thinking, God, I mean, surely not all Indian films are like this, but I was thinking about those films that I'd seen in the convenience store in Montreal that I mentioned in the show. They were all seemed very violent. They'd have these little bits of romance in them, but just all that violence and weaponry, that's exactly how you take over a country. And it's kind of odd that sometimes we're doing that with the film industry via cinematic invasion. So I started thinking about that. How like if we weren't so prodigious in terms of sending films out into the world from here, because we're very bad at receiving films from other countries, I think. Would the world view be the same as it is? I mean, would other countries have stronger traditions that we could actually see here, some of their visions of the world? Because I feel like a lot of stuff is going the way of the American film.
It's like one of our favorite recurring topics, isn't it? Soft power.
Yeah.
Cinema as an instrument of soft power.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, I wonder whether, maybe the river will start flowing the other way.
Yeah.
Sometime soon. It may do. I struggle to name a national cinema which yet has much penetration in the United States. But it will come, won't it? There's always been like a market for, say, Hong Kong cinema.
Yeah.
Genre pictures, are able to move, into every territory. If we want the world to be a better place, whose movies should we be watching? You kind of think, well, should we be watching kind of Danish movies or something? Is it the Swedes that we should be turning to for a kind of a moral compass?
Absolutely,
from the cinema industry?
Or at the very least, doing what we just did with that last episode, which is we finally got perspectives from both sides to a certain extent with Gunga Din and RRR. So at least you're getting a rounder version of the truth with a couple of different participants, contributing to the making of history.
This is a film which I didn't think would come up in our discussion of colonialism. We were on holiday last week, and one of the films that we watched, there was a little cinema where we were, one of the films that we watched was Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Okay.
And yet, surprisingly, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 even has something to say about colonialism and soft power. Jim Carrey plays the baddie.
Oh, yeah.
And he really looks like he's been allowed to improvise many of his lines, and he really, really goes for it. He sells it really hard. It would be so easy for an actor of his stature just to phone it in, video game movie. But no, he absolutely, really, really goes for it. And in one of the final scenes, he's had a face-off with Sonic the Hedgehog, and it looks like Sonic the Hedgehog has won, and Jim Carrey's character is going to be banished forever. And Jim Carrey says, why don't we call it a truce? There have been good people on both sides in this fight. And I was thinking, it's nice to get that kind of a proper little bit of political satire into this kind of children's movie video game adaptation. But you're right, seeing both sides is what the answer is, isn't it?
I think so.
It's not. Absolutely. We need good people from both sides.
Mm-hmm. Making good films.
Making good films. Yeah, making good films that people see, exactly. I tell you what we need good distributors from both sides.
Yeah, I think that would help.
I think the good films are there, aren't they? It's just that they never make it through.
Yeah.
There's a big filter. Yeah. We need braver distributors.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, too many hurdles to jump, and if it's not in English, I don't know if the Americans are going to watch it, so lots of obstacles.
I'm going to cite another Kevin Costner film now,
which
is if you build it, they will come. So we need some distributors to build it, and they will come.
Yeah,
they will come.
I agree.
Okay, let's get our popcorn.
Yes, finally, popcorn.